let me go ahead and introduce myself and let's get started and go into some of these details. Again, you will be working with the doctors there that are essentially will be the moderators, but those are the Car Injury Doctor Network doctors. And what that is, it's a group of doctors that are using my system, my documentation system, and my narrative report and deposition and trial testimony system. And the reason they're using it is because I've never lost a case in court. So, and you'll see why we've never lost a case in court as we go through this. And so it definitely stops lowball offers when all this information is put together. You will not have to deal with lowball offers again in your life if you're a personal injury attorney. And it'll also give you an idea of what kind of case you do have. It'll give you an idea of what kind of case you don't have. It also show you the documentation that your doctors didn't do. And you're going to see that that's a big part. That's a big part of why there's lowball offers. But the attorneys don't know it. It's kind of an example. So who am I? Again, I'm Dr. Paul, and I've opened 77 offices in 20 states, largest chiropractic provider in the world, over 600,000 patient visits a year. When I practice, like I said, I never lost a case in court using this documentation system and the narrative report and deposition system that I'm getting ready to share with you. So, and that's what the Car Injury Doctor Network does. It teaches the doctors I work with and the attorneys I work with how to support the patient. And that's really what this is about. It's about supporting the patient. And therefore the patient's attorney. Okay, so what are some other things we've done? I've donated over $500,000 to chiropractic. I've authored 10 books in the chiropractic. I'm a national speaker. I give seminars throughout the United States to chiropractors, doctors, attorneys on these topics of documentation, narrative report writing, deposition, trial testimony, because of the success we've had in it. Speaker in 3 chiropractic colleges. And actually one of the biggest things that's happened is I'm the only chiropractor that has beat the United States government in a court of law. As you know, the United States government has a 97% conviction rate. Well, I was falsely accused by a disgruntled employee of insurance fraud. So the Department of Justice wanted to make a figure out of me because I was the biggest fish. So they came after me pretty hard. And after 4 years and a trial testimony, I was found not to be guilty. So I'm the only chiropractor that has beat the United States government in a court of law by a jury. Unfortunately, it cost me $24 million to do that. So we'll go into the details right now of how to stop lowball offers and win policy limit awards for the soft tissue spinal injury claim. So it's going to be very specific, and you're going to see that this documentation system that we have is the absolute core of all documentation. It starts with this because everything else is easier, okay? In other words, broken bones and herniated discs and all that stuff gets easier. And it gets even better when it's supported by this core documentation system, and we'll go into that. So you should have a couple books. First of all, a booklet here. This is the outline we're going to be going through. So you should have an outline with you, okay? And if not, it's okay. You can just write down as we walk through it. But we'll be going through this outline. And specifically, we're going to go into, great detail on how to stop lowball offers. And you're going to know what causes lowball offers. You'll not only know what causes them, you'll know how to stop them. You'll know what kind of case you do or don't have. You'll know what documentation is lacking from your doctors. And you'll be able to essentially determine the value of your case. You'll know all of this by the time we finish. That's what will happen. So, how to stop lowball offers. We're also going to talk about how to defend the pre-existing injury, how to defend the low property damage argument, We're going to go into the 12 steps to tell the story to support the injury award. That's unbelievably important for the narrative report, depositions, and trial testimony. And we'll talk a little bit about the financial claims worksheet, which is how to convert the doctor's documentation into money, essentially the injury awards. So that's all the things we're going to be going into. Now, there's a second booklet you should have here. This is all the material. So when I cover a topic, I'm going to be referencing this one quite a bit. It's basically the support material. Okay. So we're going to be referencing this quite a bit. All right. And you can see there's quite a few pages involved here. So let's go ahead and get started with the basics and kind of set the scene here. So here's what happens, first of all, when we talk about how to stop lowball offers, and specifically we're going to talk about the low impact soft tissue spinal injury. But here's why we're going to talk about it, and here's why it's so important. It's the foundation of all personal injury, and you'll see why right now. And I just made an outline here for me to just go off of. You should have one where you're sitting. You should have an outline there with your doctor that's working with you. So now these are statistics from the Insurance Research Council. It's the Insurance Research Council. That 87% of all the car injuries are soft tissue. 87%. So by far, it's a soft tissue. Only 32% are disc. 16% involve a nerve injury. 10% mild concussion, 2% fracture. Now, what are some of the reasons and why do I highlight that? Well, number one is when I talk to a lot of attorneys, they're waiting for the disc injury. They want the MRI and the disc injury. Well, I'll share with you some good and bad news about that a little right now, but definitely more later. But you can double and triple your disc injury if you knew some of this basic information. I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. But the main point that we're trying to get across here is you'll lose out on 2/3 of the market. 2/3 of the market you'll lose out on if you're just waiting around for disc and you don't pay any attention to that soft tissue injury. And I'll tell you the third thing that's so important about that soft tissue injury that most people don't know, even long-standing attorneys, is it's the soft tissue injury that is the number one cause of disability in the United States. It's the soft tissue injury. Let me say that again. It's the soft tissue injury, spinal injury, that is the number one cause of disability in the United States. And what is that? That's osteoarthritis. In other words, it's a huge, massive problem. It's a big problem. And unfortunately, too many patients are not getting when they have all these things happen to them, they're not getting the injury award they deserve, and you'll see why. So that's the big takeaway from this, is that if you're just focusing on the disc injury, you're going to lose 2/3 of the business. The other part of it is when you know all the components of the soft tissue injury, those are exactly all the components you want to use in addition to the disc diagnostics. In addition, you do not just want to use an MRI and a disc. Okay? In other words, we're going to go through 12 major factors that you need to have in a narrative report, deposition, or trial, or you will significantly hurt your injury award. Even if you have a really, what you might consider a real clean, obvious herniated disc in an MRI. Okay? All right, so having said that, let's go ahead and move through here and let's talk about number one. So we're going to go into the first part, which is the top 5 financial driver categories. That's the thing we're going to go into first. Now, these are the categories of documentation that drive the injury award. After these 5, there's nothing else to drive the injury award. Now, let me say up front that I'm not giving legal advice. The advice I'm giving is medical advice relative to personal injury. So I am not an attorney and I'm not giving legal advice. And I can guarantee you know a lot more about the law than I do. But I'll also guarantee I know a lot more about medicine relative to personal injury. And that's what we're going to go into right now, and how it helps the injury award, supports the injury award, or hurts the injury award and causes lowball offers. So we're going to go into the top 5 financial driver categories first. We're going to go into the injury diagnosis categories. Then we're going to go into the 4 categories to defend the case. So the top 5 financial drivers we're going to go into is the injury category 1, impairments 2, loss of enjoyment of lifetime activities 3, duties under duress 4, prognosis and need for future care 5. That's what's going to build your injury award. And whether you do or do not have the documentation is what's going to support it or not support it. Now, the second category we're going to go into is the 4 big categories to defend the case. There's a lot of different things the insurance companies can say to decrease their financial liability. I found there's 4 that are real common, 2 that are just you're going to see every time in a low impact soft tissue spinal injury. And number 1 is they always will try to blame it on pre-existing, because you know as an attorney, you know that if they can get any percentage blamed for a pre-existing injury, it's that much less money that they have to spend. We're going to also go into the low property damage, how to defend against low property damage. And I'm sure you as an attorney have heard that more than once. Well, we're going to go into the exact formula how to defend that. Number 3 is every now and then I hear that it's subjective only. That the evidence is only subjective for a soft tissue spinal injury. And that's not the case at all. That is not the case at all. You're going to see, as a matter of fact, there's quite a bit of what's called highly probable evidence for the soft tissue spinal injury. Unfortunately, most doctors don't know it and don't do it. And then the next category is the medical team. A lot of times the insurance attorneys will say, well, that's not medically accepted. So we're going to go in now to handle that also, okay? Now, none of those 4 categories will increase your injury award. What they will do is mitigate and defend against your injury award being chopped down, being lowered. That's what that'll do. And then we're going to go into the 10th step, which is unbelievably important. And that is the 12 steps to support the injury award. And here's the bottom line with this, is you can have good documentation. And if it's not delivered in the 12 steps, it will definitely hurt your injury award. You can have bad documentation and deliver it in the 12-step formula, and it will significantly help your injury award. And of course, the goal is to do both. Have thorough, complete documentation, but deliver it in the 12-step formula. And by the way, that's how I never lost a case in court. We're going to show you that 12-step formula and how important that is. Now, that 12-step formula has to be in a narrative report, it has to be in a deposition, or in trial. That's where it has to be delivered.